Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and this afternoon I'm delighted to be joined all the way from Hungary by Kevin McCluskey and from Australia by Sean Connolly. We are tuning in all over the globe to watch Celtic today take on Falkirk. It's the quarter-final of the League Cup. We had already bounced out the tournament this stage last season. Kevin, how are you feeling about today?
Yeah, feeling pretty confident about this one. Like you say, it's nice to be talking about a League Cup game at this time of the season after last year. But yeah, confident about this one. I don't think you can't go into a game against a team that's in the lower league than your Celtic and not be confident. I know that Rodgers has made a lot of changes to the starting 11 that we'll go over soon enough, but it's a really strong team that's out there. There's a lot of players. Quite excited to see maybe some of them for the first time. So looking forward to this one. Hopefully our name is in the draw for the next round at the end of the day, which is, to keep on with the cliches, that's all you can really ask for in a cup game.
Well, it is. And also when you're coming up against a team who have shown some real form, Sean, they've done really well this season. They've not lost a league game for, I think their record at the moment is the third best in Scottish League history. So they're on a right good run. And I think Brendan really respects them as well. So we're going into this and we wouldn't count our chickens, I don't think, would we?
Oh, definitely not. I think the last time they lost the league game was April 23, something like that. So we're back. They were invincible last season, and they've won their first 5 league games this season. So they're sitting top of the championship. Fair enough. They beat a Diddy team in the last round. Team that's sitting bottom of the Premiership, but I still don't think we should underestimate them. Despite that, I think John McGlynn's a good manager, and I'm actually quite interested. Obviously, we'll focus on Celtic, but just quickly mention Falkirk. I'm quite interested to see how Calvin Miller plays, assuming he's playing. I've not actually checked their team yet.
He is,
He is, yeah. So yeah, wouldn't underestimate them for sure. They're essentially the 13th best team in Scotland at the moment, and last week we beat the 12th best team, but we didn't exactly do it convincingly. So hopefully today is a bit more convincing, a bit more relaxing, but some strong reinforcements on the bench ready to come on if we need them.
Yep, and like you said, they have They've actually beaten 2 top flight sides on their way to facing Celtic this afternoon. The aforementioned Hearts, who have just sacked Naismith, which I think was quite a popular decision amongst the fan base. And of course, Dundee United, they beat them earlier on in the tournament. We're going to look at the lineup, seeing how you mentioned Miller. And he's an interesting one for me as well, because he was so highly rated, Sean, and so highly rated by Brendan Rodgers, in actual fact, as a young guy coming through from Castle Milk. He won one of those the Golden Boy European Footballer of the Year awards when he was a teenager. I think unsuccessfully. We tried to convert him to a fullback, but he now plays a more attacking role for Falkirk, and he's doing really well. I just like to see young players playing football, and the fact that he's spent a bit of time down south, he came back up to Greenock Morton, and he's now an on-form Falkirk side, who I think it was pointed out the other day are probably better than a couple of the teams in the top flight at the moment. So yeah, we're not going to take this lightly. It's at home, which is great. There's a few interesting little tidbits from previous games. The last time Falkirk beat us, Kasper Schmeichel was in goals for Falkirk. There you go. And obviously he'll be playing today as well. What a sensational bit of business he has been, Kevin, Kasper Schmeichel.
He has been indeed. I'm just trying to think that game then that he would have been in goals. That would have been League Cup as well, probably, is it not? When Tony Stokes was at Falkirk as well. Would it be that season?
He saved, it was in March 2007, and it was a goal by Stephen Thompson who got Falkirk their win. He actually saved a penalty from Craig Beattie that day, did Kasper Schmeichel. So I'm not sure if Tony Stokes was in the Falkirk lineup, but they did manage to beat us, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I'm either remembering that game or I'm misremembering it with another one. But it's an interesting stat anyway that he was involved in that game. But yeah, to go to your point, your question, he's been a phenomenal signing for us. We spoke about him in the last couple of games, just the importance of having that upgrade on Joe Hart that we didn't really expect to get. The level of experience and quality that he brings in that position, it's phenomenal. And you saw it in midweek. Like, the goal that beat him was a world-class goal. He didn't stand a chance with that.
A great
But anything
finish,
else
yeah.
that anything else that came near him, he was saving it. He was claiming crosses. He looked very confident and assured. His passing out from the back once again was exemplary. And to play the way that Brendan wants us to play in Europe, we need a keeper that can do that. He just inspires confidence throughout the whole team. You can see it. Right, the defence looks so much more solid with him behind them, orchestrating them and being that solid base. And to think that we've got him in on a free transfer, it's a phenomenal piece of business. So yeah, hats off to the recruitment team for that. When they get a lot of stick for not bringing in the right players, give them a wee bit of credit when it's Jay Schmeichel's been a tremendous signing so far. And I like the rest of the new players that have come in. You can only see him getting better as well once he's fully settled and integrated into the team, which is it's a nice start from our perspective.
I found it interesting there just the other day. I was watching a show that I really enjoy, actually, called The Warm-Up Show. It's Gordon Duncan that hosts it with Sam North. And they were talking to Yogi, and he was talking about the process of actually bringing Kasper Schmeichel up the road. Don't know if you saw it, guys.
Yeah.
So he goes down, he drives down with his assistant to watch Kasper Schmeichel playing in, you know, whatever the version of a reserve game is, I guess, an under-23 games. And he starts talking to Joe Hart, who's at the game. Obviously, the both of them were at Man City at the same time. And Joe Hart gave him a glowing recommendation. And so he was able to bring Schmeichel up the road. Stuart Pearce was the manager at the time. And he was able to bring Schmeichel up the road for game time. And, you know, I just look at Schmeichel in the career that he's had, and he definitely isn't out to grass, Sean. He's up here to do something in the Champions League. You know, we all know we can't win it, right? We get it. But to do something positive, and we've started that already with the first game, still buzzing about that performance during the week there. But him and Brendan know each other. They know the mentality of one another. And I think that it's important sometimes to have someone from a previous stable to ensure that the mentality can filter into the rest of the team, particularly the new signings.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why I'm pretty glad to see that we're with a strong midfield today as well. So obviously, the back four has been, correct me if I'm wrong, the back four has not changed yet once this season. And then today, it's all changed. So I think, but by having that strong midfield, the centre mids today, we're really sending that message that, you know, it's all about staying strong, staying focused today. We are taking this seriously, but we're taking it seriously from the middle of the park, and the players up front and at the back are getting a chance to shine. You mentioned about Kasper Schmeichel. I think there's a lot of questions about Senesalo and why he's not playing.
Yeah,
I think he's injured, isn't he? Because Scott Bain's on the bench and Gareth Senesalo wasn't training yesterday. So I don't know if that's been confirmed yet, but that's what I'm hearing.
Makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm most interested to see the new players above all, Valle and Trusty, and you know, other than that, we've seen all the players before, and we just hope that they stay focused and take this as seriously and raise their game and show that they belong at Celtic. Otherwise, there's more transfer windows to come, and we've got money to spend.
Yeah, you're right. The last time we played Falkirk was in the Scottish Cup, right? It was the 3rd of April 2021, and we won the game 3-0. I'm going to read out the team and ask you if you can remember who was on the score sheet on this occasion. Scott Bain actually started for Celtic. Right back, Kev, Kenny. Oh dear, we'll move on. Laxalt, Walsh. No, it wasn't Walsh, it was Welsh. Ayer, Brown, Turnbull, Forrest, Rogic. Christie, Griffiths. On the bench, who came off the bench rather, was Ayeti, Soro and El Yunusi. We beat them 3-0. Do you have any recollection of the game? It's a game that we covered on this channel. Any recollection whatsoever? Can you remember who scored the 3 goals for Celtic? You can't. I know you can't. He's just got to take a stab in the dark here. The goals were scored by James A. Forrest, Ryan Christie and Mohamed El Yunusi.
Wow, that's what I was going to say.
You go. Oh, yeah, you were right. Obviously. So that was a team. Much change. I mean, you fast forwards just
2 survivors. 2 survivors there.
It's incredible, the churn rate when it comes to players at Celtic. It really is. But yes, let's bring up the team. We've not confirmed the team. I know that most of you will have seen it, but here we go. Here's the starting 11 for Celtic. We've got Schmeichel, the aforementioned Schmeichel in goals, with Tony Ralston starting at right back and our new signing Valle starting at left back. And there's a central defensive partnership who, the 2 players, the pair have not played together before. It's Stephen Welsh and Austin Trusty. Midfield, strong. McGregor, Bernardo, Hatate. Up top, also strong. Forrest, Ida. And Palmer, the much maligned Palmer's getting game time and getting a start today. And on the bench, we've got Scott Bain, Taylor, Kyogo, Kuhn, Yang, Holm, Nawrocki, Engels, and Donovan. I think it's true what you were saying, Sean. You do have that almost that insurance on the bench if it turns into one of these sticky, clunky games. Let's not forget, first time round when Brendan Rodgers' teams were flying, we came up against two sides managed by Jack Ross in the Cups. One of them was Alloa, one of them was St Mirren, and both games were at home, and both games were tough matches. Mm-hmm. So I think that having that kind of like insurance on the bench is very important today.
Yeah, absolutely. I see Engels is probably, I'm not sure what he's thinking, like being on the bench of Falkirk, but hopefully he realises it's just that he did put an absolute shift in midweek. For me, I would have absolutely stuck my house on Callum McGregor starting today because there's no game midweek coming up. He didn't have international games during the last break. There was no danger that anyone else was starting in that position for me. And it also feels like just about the only position on the pitch where we've not got an obvious number 2 player, which was my only real concern coming out of the transfer window when Iwata left, because Iwata was the obvious one to step in. And to be honest, I don't know who it is now. Anyone want to have a stab at that?
Well, I agree. We don't have a like for like. I was thinking someone like Luke McCowan could come in and do a very, very good job on a day like today. We know he's cup tied, having played against Bonnyrigg Rose earlier in the campaign. But, you know, I totally agree. There is no like for like replacement unless Kevin McCluskey can tell us otherwise.
Not really, no. Maybe Bernardo to drop back because he's got the work rate, but he's not the same kind of player as McGregor. There isn't a like for like.
Good shout.
Yeah, Bernardo. And it's good to see players like Palmer, Ida, Bernardo also getting starts. But let's talk about the two newbies. I know that Trusty made a cameo in the European campaign. So we'll go to the left back. Valle, Sean, very excited about this guy. And I'm the same as everybody else. I've seen the show reels and all this kind of stuff. But, this is a player who I think even just by arriving at the club has given Taylor a challenge, which is something he's not had. I mean, that last time we faced Falkirk, our left back was Luxalt. He's seen him off. He's seen Bolingoli off. He's seen off Bernabe, rather. 3 left backs who cost us a lot of money, yet Taylor's still the first choice. Valles came in slightly differently. He's on loan for a season. It'll be interesting to see him perform today.
Yeah, look now, and you have to caveat that as well. Taylor did not see off Mo Kamara. That was someone else, okay? The Mo Kamara days will not be back, unfortunately.
Yeah, what was with that bandage on his... Was that just for show?
Huh? I have no idea, mate. It must have been like superstition or something, I don't know.
A reoccurring wrist injury, Mo Kamara, yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't expect him to come up. But there you go.
You never know. You never know what you're going to get. Yeah, Vai's going to be interesting. Like from the highlights you see, he looks very much like an attacking fullback. So, and I'm not sure how much he will be tested today. We don't know. It might be that Falkirk probably planned their tactics around all the videos they've seen of us this year. And but apart from the midfield 3, what have they got to go on today? You know, they're just going to have to. Whatever system they had planned for in advance, they're probably just going to have to play that. If that system involved targeting the left back area, then we're going to see it today. And we'll get to see how Vai stands up to that. Other than the highlights on YouTube, I've not seen the guy play before. So this is going to be my first time judging him. And hopefully it shows a bit, whether that's attacking, whether it's defensively. And you can be sure if he doesn't show up well defensively against Falkirk, he's not going to get in for the big games coming up. He's not going to be back in at Ibrox and whenever it is, January, December.
This is the thing. Yeah, I mean, we have thrown in fullbacks in games like that before, Sean. And, I think it's a wee bit more of a baby steps. And I'm not disrespecting Falkirk in any way, shape or form, Kevin, by throwing in the likes of Trusty, let's not forget, £6 million centre-half, throwing him into the fray and Valle at left back. But I am excited to see how he performs. I think that from a lot of the footage I've seen, he's very good offensively as well as being very athletic and combative as a defender.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same as Sean, probably, in my analysis of him, because I've only seen the same YouTube videos that everyone else has seen. I haven't watched them live in a game yet. So I'm intrigued to see just how well he performs. You've got to have a bit of faith and confidence in him as a player, though, that he's come through La Messiah. He must be a half decent football player. Yeah, by all accounts, he seems to be more attack minded than defensive. So that could be put under a bit of question today, depending on how Falkirk come out and play. As Sean said, if they were coming out to play against Taylor, you would expect a lot of plays coming down that left hand side. So they might do the same. It could be a big challenge for him. But these are the games that these guys have got to come in and play. We've got a big squad. It's a squad game these days. If we don't trust Valle or Trusty, for that matter, to come in and play in this kind of game against, to give them all the credit in the world, a side that is in the lower league than us, then the guys don't deserve to be at the football club, to be fair. So I think they're in there on merit. It's a great chance for them both to prove what they can do. And if they can come through this with kind of flying colours, or at least something approaching that as a first game, then I think it gives us a bit of confidence that we've got good backups, which we probably haven't had at centre back for a season or two, and we've definitely not had it left back for a while. So very interested to see how they do. But on the one with Valle as well, you've got young Donovan on the bench, who I think again is also a left back. He impressed me quite a lot in the couple of games I saw him in the pre-season. So I wouldn't mind seeing Valle getting an hour and then Donovan coming on for the last half an hour or 20 minutes if we've got the game kind of wrapped up, because I think he's another one that looks a good prospect, and he's a homegrown youth player as well. So you really want to see him do well.
No, he has looked good, and this season, on the back of that pre-season, Kev, we've also, we have seen other people given an opportunity on the bench. Young Turley, for example, has had bench time, if you like. So I think that's a reward for showing up in pre-season and doing really well. George Robertson, yeah, you're right. Big Yogi said he went down the road with 800 quid in his pocket. I'd go and watch that, by the way. Very, very good interview with Yogi, and he's joined by Tony Watt. Pete McGee, no Maeda or CCV or AJ or Scales. Listen, I think maybe in AJ's case, and certainly with CCV, they've had a few knocks this season as well, Sean. And if you can get an opportunity, like Kevin says, right, you've got players there that you brought to the football club to play games. They've got to be able to play at this level. So if you have this opportunity, and it doesn't come around that often to rest players, you've got to take it, haven't you?
Yeah, look, we're not being like Alex Ferguson levels of disrespect here, where we're refusing to even enter our team into the competition, right? We're not, and it's not. This is a team of 8. That, looking at it, if I remember correctly, 8 full international players and 3 who represented their countries at various unders levels. So it's not like we're phoning it in here. These are like, we've got a £9.5 million striker up front, right? And glancing across the Falkirk team line, all Scottish players and 1 Guinean who I really don't know much about, Alfie Aguiman. But as far as I can tell, not an international cap amongst them. So there's no question we've got them in terms of ability levels, but they're going to be playing for their lives today, Falkirk. And if we don't at least get close to their level of determination and intensity, then we could come a cropper, despite our obvious on paper better quality, even having made those 8 changes. That if we do slip up, then the headline will be too many changes, blah, 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 blah. If we comfortably win, nothing will be said about the changes.
No, you're right.
There'll be no headline about great tactical switch, it worked out well, but no, it'll just be, if something goes wrong, then it's shouldn't have made 8 changes, right?
The one thing beyond the changes is the overall impact of a disjointed defence. Let's focus on the defence for a moment, Kev, right? So a defence that's kind of thrown together and who have never played together. So you've got Schmeichel at the back. I've got no concern. We opened up the show talking about him. No concerns about him. But then you've got a defensive 4 who have never played in a back 4 for Celtic before. And it's the disjointed nature of that worries me more than any of the individuals within the 4. It's just, you look at Scales and Carter Vickers, you think, got a great understanding. A lot of it, it's probably at that stage now where they're not even communicating verbally. They know if you move in there, I'm going to cover you, etc. You go for that header, I'll drop back. That kind of thing is eventually taken for granted when you're watching Celtic, because it's fluid and you're not even noticing what's happening because there's a synergy between the defenders. That's my one concern, the disjointed nature of putting 4 guys together who haven't played in the same defence before.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And again, Sean made the point before that at least we've got the midfield as a regular midfield. So again, I've got to think you're playing at home against Falkirk. We're going to have the majority of the possession. We're going to be on the front foot, and you take that from the midfield going forward. So 3 regular midfielders. Forrest's played quite a bit of football this season. He does a £9.5 million striker who's looking to make an impact. And Palmer does whatever Palmer wants to do, regardless of whether he's a regular or not. He's just a bit of a maverick. So you've got a bit of confidence from midfield going up. And yeah, individually, the back 4, all pretty good players, you would like to think. But you do have that bit of worry that, like you said, they haven't played at all together this season. I think it's the first start of the season for all of them. Maybe Ralston started one. Someone can correct me on that one. But for the rest of them, it should be the first start of the season. It's 0 minutes together as a back 4. That's always a bit of a worry. And when you look back to our start to last season, it was so up and down because the back 4 was changing week in, week out, or certainly the centre-back pairing was changing. As soon as that became a bit more stable, the results picked up, and you need that understanding. It's the one area of the park where you're normally a bit more conservative about making wholesale changes. But Rodgers has gone and done it. He's made all 4. But yeah, individually, I think they're all good players. We've just kind of almost got to hope for the best that they do gel for this game. But like I said before, these are the games where you make these kind of changes. If you can't trust the players to go and put in a good performance in this kind of game, you have to question maybe whether some of them deserve to be at the club.
Well, there is that. Sometimes you've just got to be bold. Sorry, Sean.
I was going to say, I had a thought that Ron Baird has mentioned in the comments as well, coincidentally. These are all pretty clearly the second choice left back, centre back, right back. So maybe they've been playing together as a back 4 in the squad games at the training.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's potentially, and it's not quite the same. You could argue that they're playing against even better players at defending at training. So, but yeah, just a thought.
No, that's a good shout by Ron. Yeah, so that synergy that I was concerned about, the disjointed nature, may not actually be present because they've been training together day to day up against decent players at Celtic training. Pigeon M, I think that the reason that Welsh starts and Nawrocki doesn't is it just gives you the pecking order, doesn't it? It really gives you the pecking order. It was pretty clear at the beginning of the campaign that Brendan Rodgers didn't fancy Kobayashi, didn't fancy Lagerbielke. Some might say Lagerbielke has been kind of unlucky in his Celtic career. Has he had a particularly bad game in a Celtic jersey? Probably not, but Rodgers didn't fancy they two and they're away. But what has happened, of course, is that we've brought in a new player in Trusty, and I think that what you see today is your second choice centre-half. So we all know CCV and Scales are always going to be your first choice unless some drastic changes. Your second choice are Welsh and Trusty, and just below them is Nawrocki. But, to be honest with you, has he done anything to merit a start, guys? I mean, I thought he'd done okay when he came on against Rangers in the 2-1 game. Remember, there was an early injury to Welsh. Nawrocki came on, done pretty well. Other than that, he's never shown me that he's a £4.5 million centre-half, Kev. Am I being harsh on him?
I think a little bit, because I don't think he's ever had the chance to prove that he's a £4.5 million centre-half. In terms of he's just not had the run of games. Similar to Lagerbielke, I don't think he's really put a foot wrong when he's been in the team, but he's never been a first pick. It's always been CCV and then Scales. Previously CCV, Starfelt, obviously those two came in after. Scales got the nod because of injuries, really. I think at first in Nawrocki and Lagerbielke, Scales has played himself into the team. He's now undroppable at the moment. So I think it's a little bit harsh or unfortunate on both of those two that maybe injuries in the form of someone else has kept them out. But if we're going to say, hey, let's have confidence in this back 4 because they train together every day, Nawrocki's obviously not training as a as the second choice player. Rodgers clearly doesn't fancy him, so there must be something behind that as well. You've got to kind of trust the manager's judgment on that one. So yeah, I think a little bit unfortunate, but at the same time, probably there's no smoke without fire, and he probably just isn't at the level that the manager needs him to be at.
Yeah, he's got time on his side. He's young. He's got a lengthy contract. And anything, I think Scales is a shining example that anything can happen if you grasp the opportunity. We've got Brad Lad 88 coming in to say Ida hat-trick, Forrest Palmer and Hatate to score. All right, so you're going for a 6-0. Dear me. Let's hope so. Stick a fiver on it. Stones Outlaw 1888 thinks 4-0 to Celtic. And we've also got Sean, who shares some of the concerns, too many changes for a game against the team top of the championship and unbeaten in the league. How do you see it going then, Sean? What's your kind of prediction for today?
It's interesting because just side-eyeing the coverage there, they've kind of got Falkirk in a 4-3-3, suggesting that they're playing their normal system, but I'd be surprised if that's actually how they come out. I'd expect it to be more low block, playing the counter-attack, focusing on the wings and, taking their moments. It's the same thing it's been for a while now, right? It's like if we can score in the first 20 minutes, then it becomes a bit of a stroll, really. Not literally, but like it can be much more comfortable if you scored early. I think if they frustrate us and we don't score by half time, it's going to be more like the Hearts game last week, a bit tense and a bit edgy, and we would edge it 2-0 at that point. So it really depends when the first goal comes, but I still see us winning by at least 2 goals, to be honest.
Yeah.
Come back to me for an actual score prediction.
I go back to those 2 games against Alloa and St Mirren, very well organised teams by Jack Ross, who was a manager Brendan rated highly. And they were both 2-1 victories, if I remember correctly. So I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk. I really don't. And one player, in actual fact, before I get your prediction, Kev, one player who we've not really focused on, but I think it's an important game for him, is Lewis Palmer, who gets a start on the wing. And Lewis Palmer's another one of these guys who's obviously... He's done pretty well, actually, last season, if you look at the early part of the campaign. His assists, his goals, at the very highest level, because he's done it in the Champions League as well. But because of the form of someone like Maeda, who's been incredible this season, and, Kuhn, who has started to show why we brought him in January, games like today, unless he grasps the opportunity, are going to be few and far between for a player like Lewis Palmer. He needs to step up. You've called him a maverick before. Mavericks normally have the ability, but their temperament maybe holds them back a wee bit. What do you expect from Palmer? Do you think we'll ever get something out of this player? Is he a guy that you'll look at maybe in January for us to strengthen on the wings, and then he becomes surplus to requirements?
Unfortunately, I think that's where it will go with him. Yeah, he's a player that's got a lot of ability. He's got zero consistency though in his game, which is why I'll call him a maverick, because he can pull moments out of the bag in games like he did against Motherwell last season when we needed it up at Fir Park. He can score big goals in Champions League. He can put himself about in those kind of matches, and then he'll go on a run of 3 or 4 games where he's completely anonymous and he does nothing to influence it. When you play for a club like Celtic, you can't afford to do that. You've got to be on the ball in every single game. So this, not to understate it for him, this is a massive game for Lewis Palmer if he wants to stake a claim to be considered as a challenger to Maeda for that left wing slot, because it's his to lose. Maeda, that's his position, it's nailed on, but he needs somebody to be pushing him. It should be Palmer, and he needs to start putting in performances in these kind of games if it is to be him. And the other one, I thought if he had started, it would have been the similar kind of game as Odin Holm. Somebody who needs to, whenever he gets on the park, just make himself undroppable, or give the manager that headache of saying, like, I'm going to bring the other guy back in, but you're making this really difficult for me. So I think that's what we need from Palmer, a performance like that. Whether we'll get it, I'm pretty doubtful. And I see that we're running close to the kickoff time, so I'll shut up in a minute, but I'll give you my prediction ahead.
Don't shut up until you give us a prediction. Yes, give us that first.
Yes. So I'll give you my prediction, which, as much as I'm very confident that we'll win this game, I'm going to go with a 2-0 and a dogged performance from Falkirk. They'll make it difficult for us.
I'm going to agree with that. I'm going to go 2-0 as well. And by the way, I think that Palmer, Holm and Nawrocki are all in a similar position. what we've seen from Palmer, probably more than the other two, is the contribution. He's had more of a contribution than the other two, but they're all in the same kind of boat, if you ask me. So we got a 2-0 from Kev, 2-0 from me. Did you go 2-0 as well, Sean?
I said to win by 2 goals, and having just watched the Falkirk players come out the tunnel, they're huge. I'm going to back them to score at a set piece, and we'll win 3-1.
3-1, I'll take it. Right, let's go and join the action. Join us again at half-time, where we'll be looking at the first 45 minutes. All that's left for me to say is thank you once again, Sean and Kevin, for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.